Hey y'all, Shell here. So I want to go ahead and just do a video on fodder, and I know that this is super overdue. I've been promising it for a while. However, I've been busy and I've been also perfecting the way that I do things. I did a video a while back about trying it out with soil, because I've been trying to do fodder for about a year and a half now. And when I was doing it the way everybody else does it, when I say everybody else, I just mean all the successful people on YouTube doing it, where you don't have soil, it's just completely, hydroponics. But where I live, that's easier said than done. And I was dealing with 100% mold. Didn't matter how I did it, mold. So then I just was like, well, I'll just grow it for the rabbits, because I have got rabbits and chickens that eat it, and then also sometimes my tortoise. So I was like, I'll just grow it for the rabbits and cut it. And then I was like, well, if I do that though, I'm wasting so much. And then I was like, I could plant it in soil, feed it to the chickens, and they will turn that, and it just sort of enters the cycle of my composting situation, because we empty out all of the dirt. It's a tedious task. That's another video someday. Out of the chicken runs and replace that with other dirt that needs to be recycled pretty much. So we are constantly recycling all the soil that we use on our property into an amazing compost mix. So I decided to start doing that, and it's been very successful. So I'll go ahead and point out to you the things that I do, what works for me, and maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. But don't give up on fodder, because it's amazing. It can help cut your feed costs, and it's healthy for them. And I know that it can be hard if you can't get things the same way people on, YouTube tell you, and you just want to quit and end up with a garage full of grain like I did. So here's what I do. And I come up with containers this small. I do big, small square ones. I've got really big ones that you can see behind me there. And then I've also got my sunflower sprouts. And then I also will do just wheat berries. These are just sprouting. And then I put them in the fridge, and I give those to the chickens, especially the ones that are in my hospital cage. And then I also, we have a new guinea pig, who she enjoys them. So let me show you how I start things out. So I'll bring you over here. Woo, let's not make you dizzy. I pardon any noise coming from that general direction. Our cockatoo sometimes lets me work, and sometimes he does not. So here's the containers that you can use, that I use. These foil ones come in quite handy, but they do get holes quickly. And most of the time I don't put holes in the bottom of my fodder containers anymore. But you can. It's up to you. But nature will do it on its own if you use these ones. They're cheap, easy to recycle. Here's what they look like brand new. It does not take long for them to need replaced. And as much as I use them, and I use them a lot, I'll be real honest with you. Maybe 3-4 weeks until the holes become too much to bear. Cheap kitty litter pans. We had to buy a bunch of these when we moved across country. That's why there's a hole up there and a hole there. we have cats, and we had to travel, moving across the whole country, and these were their travel litter boxes, but they work really good for fodder. That's what I have these sunflower sprouts in, and they do a great job. And then of course I have one that has holes in it because I tried it both ways, and if I'm being honest, there was zero difference. Small containers like these, like I showed you here with this one, you can buy them in the store. I don't know what brand they are. I know for me, these ones are what our lunch meat came in. They have lids and you can reuse them if you want to, but for me, I use them to make fodder. Anything you want to use, you can use, as long as you have enough room to plant your soil. It doesn't have to be too thick either. Like the litter pans are awfully thick, but these are super thin in comparison to the litter pans. And you don't need much soil. Not much at all. You're not trying to put like a big old thing of soil in your run with your chickens. So let me show you kind of how we begin over here with our grains. Now, you want to make sure that you get the right grains. What I have the most success with is wheat. And it's best to get de-hulled if you can. Put this down a little bit here. And this is what the wheat looks like. And I buy it in bulk. And yeah, there's little pieces and stuff in there. It's not made for human consumption, so you just sort of clean that out as you go. And then oats. This is not hulled. So you see that it's still got its casing on it. Same thing with the barley. And I always end up with corn and stuff in it. I bought 300 pounds of this from a feed guy around here. It was super cheap because I have a hard time finding it anywhere else. And then of course you have your black oil sunflower seeds. So those are what I use. Now I'll mention the only ones that I soak are the black oil sunflower seeds and the wheat. The oats and the barley, I don't. I'll just add it to the soil and water it like normal. I find, me personally, if I try to sprout it in the jar, it doesn't work. It just ends up molding. And I don't know what my reasons are for that. I hear oat is supposed to be super hard to sprout anyway. And I'll admit, I've never been able to successfully sprout it in a jar. So I just put it in the soil. And it will grow just as fast as the other stuff. So let me show you the wheat berries in my jars. These are, sorry, trying to get used to where my camera's at. These are ready for wheat berries or for planting. I mean, they are ready. And that's where I let them get to. So I'm going to show you how I rinse them and how I plant them. One of them we're going to save for just wheat berries. And then I'm going to show you also how I prepare my grains. So I'm going to rinse these out. Let me tip you down there into my sink. Lucky you. I always go with cold water. And I fill the jar. Let it get full, and then I dump it once. I do the same thing with this one. I'll tip it once. And then, I always use a small strainer. This is dedicated to just my fodder. It doesn't get used for anything else. And sometimes it's a little hard to get out at first. You don't want to crush all your wheat berries, so you gotta be gentle. Let me make sure my camera's showing you here. There we go. And you don't want to do too much of it all at once, because you want to look through it as you rinse it. And the reason I think everybody should look through it is sometimes you have one that didn't sprout that's starting to go bad, and you want to make sure you take those out. So let me see if I can find one. Not in that batch. That's good though. And then I just put them in a Ziploc bag. And then I put them in the fridge. And they keep quite a while that way. So there we go. Put them in the bag. It's good to have a little strainer that will fit in your bag. And then I like to rinse it off and do it again. I noticed that this is a huge favorite amongst everybody. Chickens, rabbits, even my cockatoo. He's a weird one. Alright, let's see if we have any pieces that we gotta take out here. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong if you get them, it's just that sometimes they don't sprout. And if that happens, they can cause mold. So you want to get them out of there in case they do. And you'll notice them right away because they start turning like a black and green and brown. But these all look real good. They look real good. I don't see any yet. I'm sure we'll find one before we're done. And it's important to rinse them real good. Strain them real good. I don't like to put them in the fridge full of water. Because then they get kind of gooey. So I like no water in the bottom of my bag. They don't need it. They're not going to dry out. And then I don't know how long they really stay good for in the fridge because I feed it so quickly. But I have made up to a week in advance before and it was fine. Personally, I wouldn't be comfortable with it being any further than that. Now, the amount of wheat grain that I put in these jars to make that much is a cup and a half. Exactly. I use a measuring cup. I also take out like any certain broken pieces like that can mold. Even if it hasn't started to yet. If you see it, just take it out. I don't think this whole jar looks like it didn't have any moldy ones. That's amazing. That doesn't happen very often. Fantastic. Can we dry that off? And then we're going to put it in our bag. Just like so. And like I said, they love it. My chickens that I have in my hospital cage right now, because I've got a little, actually it was built to be a brooder, so it's just a little hospital ward thing. Those guys get it mixed with their regular chicken feed. My other guys, they get it with their treat bowl. But the reason that I put it inside the regular feed for the other chickens is because it entices them to eat a little better, which is fantastic. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rinse these out, but instead of putting them in the bag here to turn into or to feed as wheat berries, we're going to put these in soil. I'm going to show you how I plant them personally. So we're going to rinse them real quick, just like we did the other one. And I apologize for any weird movement or me walking away. I am not the most technology savvy person that there was. So I tend to just give it to you raw and as it comes. I don't do all the fancy footwork. Now this one I'm going to put a little more in the colander than normal because we're planting it. But I'm still going to look through it for moldy bits. Because again, we don't want the moldy bits. That will affect our entire tray. And I don't know why I still call them trays, but they're not trays. Alright, those are rinsed. Now, I will say, I have tried fodder trays. In fact, I have quite a few of them. I'll show you those real quick. The fodder trays are, pardon my mess and pardon my baby wipes, but these are what I'm talking about. These types of trays. I've tried them. They didn't work for me. But they come in very handy. See if I can show you there in my hospital ward here. I use them to feed the chickens on. That's my little hospital ward. It's a brooder. It's got 2 girls in it right now. They're doing so much better right now. Good girls. I feed them their food and water on that. And we use the trays for stuff that we didn't buy them for. I apologize, I get cotton mouth sometimes. But I'm glad I bought them, or that we bought them, because I use them for other stuff. Now, for planting them, I will put them in this tin as opposed to these. Now, let me tell you what I use these smaller ones for, because I'm sure people are like, what on earth? These come in handy for like a little individual feeding if I have one that's not feeling good, like these 2 girls right now, or I like to put them in my tortoise enclosure. He likes to run through them and act a fool in it. But I do like to have just little individual pieces on hand, or I run out of room in my sunroom places to put them, because I'll go back in there and show you. My sunroom was not intended for this, and it drives my husband crazy. My sunroom, I'll turn the camera around for you. It's not real big, but it's not tiny. I have this rack here. It's equipped with a few grow lights, but the sun comes in strong there and there. And then I also put them there. And then I fill up my tortoise enclosure on top. Let's see, where's he at? Is he in his... Oh, no. Ha! There he is. Hi, bud. And then, if you look there, he's got his grass. How are you, Lincoln? He says, I'm eating, leave me alone. Soon, though, got some new grow lights that I got for Christmas. And then we're going to change things up in here to where it won't be cluttered. It won't be a mess. and my husband won't be so frustrated with me. Oh, I was hoping that wouldn't happen. The cockatoo gets into a mood sometimes, so let me calm him down and then we will get started. Alright. I hope he'll be happy for a little bit. Let's get this cracking. So we're going to use this one. I'm going to tilt you down. So first thing you're going to need is just a little bit of soil. Not a lot, just a little bit. If you do too much, it'll be hard for the grain and the sprouts to go through the soil, and then you'll start pushing it out. Just enough to cover the bottom. This is just organic topsoil with compost, and I add grit. The reason I add grit is because I feed it in the run. They're not free ranging, and I don't want them, and sometimes you come across these big pieces, you just take them out if you want to, or you can keep it in there and let them turn it. They're not going to be eating the soil that you plant it with. This is recycled into the soil used in the gardens. It's basically a natural way to compost things. So then you take your freshly drained wheat, whatever you sprouted, but you're freshly sprouted. For me, it's wheat, so we'll call it wheat. And you don't want to overdo it, but you do want to put a generous amount. Make sure you get along the edges, the corners. And I like to just throw it in there. And I turn it as I go because it really makes a difference. And again, each jar that I do is 1.5 cups. If you make a mess, don't worry about it. Just pick it up. It's fine. The grain doesn't care if you knocked it on the counter or the floor, which I do a ton. And if you feel like you're doing too much, just remember, if you spread it out, and it's a single layer and it's not a mound, because you don't want a mound at all. You don't want a mound. Like if it's all piled up like that right there, just spread it out. But if you're too sparse, like if I were to do it right now, I wouldn't have much grass over here. You know, it doesn't make branches. It just, you plant one and that's what you get. So I like to be generous with it so that I make sure that I get an equal amount everywhere. So this ought to be enough, so I'll sit there and I'll spread it out just a little bit. I don't want it to clump, and it'll hold on to each other a little bit too with its little sprouts. It's almost like little hands. There we go. Now, you want to put just enough soil to cover the top of that. So you don't want to pile a huge amount, and so just enough to cover it. You know, and once your initial investment into some soil, depending on how quickly your chickens are turning it, if you reclaim soil, I'm not saying everybody does, but if you do, once you get a good amount going in your reclamation system, you don't have to worry about buying more soil. But for those that don't, that you use so little, you really use such a little amount of soil that you won't have to worry about having to buy a whole bunch. I mean, for this, we probably used 5 cups. That's it. It's not a whole lot. And then, I'll bring you over it. We just lightly water it. Just lightly. I'll show you. If you do too much, obviously it'll like push it around or make it moldy. So you just want a little bit. I do like 1 or 2 passes with my sprayer. So we'll put it, make sure you can see it in the sink here. There we go. And just 1 or 2 quick passes with the sprayer. And make sure you're real gentle. You don't want it to be powerful. You don't want it to, we're not trying to, you know, blow our fodder out. We're not washing dishes or anything like that. And then from there, I take it to go be under the grow lights. Now, I will say that natural sunlight is always better, especially for the grasses. The grasses always seem to grow much faster with the natural light. So normally I will put the grasses on top of the tortoise enclosure when I can. And then the sunflower sprouts seem to really like the grow lights better, which is weird. Preference is preference. I suppose all living things have their own preferences. So that's how I plant. And as you see with what I have, I'm quite successful with it. I don't use anything else in it. That's all I do. That's all I use. Like I said, when I use the barley or the oat, I don't soak it at all. And the small one that I showed you earlier, that was actually barley. And then this one is wheat. And the reason why this one looks so funky, and I'll show you a few others actually, is I have these cats that I love oh so much that like to get up here and play in my wheat, and they want to eat it. They like it, you know. They sell it in stores for cats. And I end up with spots like that. I love them so. Do I ever? But unfortunately, when they do that, I just don't get the opportunity to grow that particular pan out. So I'll just throw it out to the chickens like that once the rest of it gets tall enough. But it just sort of stunts that area to where it will not grow. So if you have a place you can put it where cats can't get it, that's best. I'll show you again that system there with the racks. My cats can't get into that. They only get into what I have on the tortoise enclosure. So now I'm going to show you how I preserve it. These. Because I've got 2 rabbits in the living room here. I'll brag about my husband here for a minute. He built this entertainment center system just for our rabbits. You have to pardon that little water. So that is water, I promise. Before we realized that our water system was not working, it flooded that poor man's outside of his cage and it sucked in before we got it sealed. So, but that's where the rabbits live. They're so spoiled rotten, and they get salads every evening and every morning, and they also get fresh grown fodder. So theirs I cut with scissors, and the chickens, we just throw it out there for them. The guinea pig, she sometimes likes to gnaw on stuff, and even the cockatoo loves to eat the grass. So whatever works for them, I guess. So now we go through, so all that grass I just showed you is about a week's worth. And then those sunflower sprouts, we probably go through 5 or 6 of those a week. So you have to stay on top of it, you know, from beginning to end with fodder. To get to that point where it's good and high is about a week. So I'll show you how I prep it. Gotta get your wheat. You got your jar. Now, like I said, 1.5 cups on the nose. No more, no less. Let me get my handy dandy measuring cup over here. Now, and again, remember, you're gonna have to rinse it. And that's a little bit of a process, but it's all right. It's not as bad as some others. One and a half cups. And remember, it turns into a very large amount once it soaks. Okay, and then I like to use a big spoon when I'm doing the rinsing. I'll put you down here. There we go. There we go. And I take the spoon and I mix it up as we go. You see all that? That all has to come out. And I probably will do this, I don't know, 12 or more times until I stop getting a bunch of stuff floating in the top. And yeah, you might lose a few good grains, but I'm not as tedious as I guess I could be. And the reason for that is that I just have too much to do, so I have to worry about every single grain. But if you're looking to not waste any, it could take quite some time. So you just do this until you don't have any more debris. There's pieces from when it was dehulled. And then, of course, the stuff that floats, the grains that float, those are not, I guess they're bad. They're not, I don't know how to really explain it, but they're not going to sprout. And so getting rid of those is important anyway. And every once in a while there will be like a piece of something from the farming process that does not, is that there? It doesn't float, but it's not something that we need. So it's looking much better there, see? So, and then after it's clear, I'll do it 1 or 2 more times just to be sure nothing's, and that's why mixing it like this is so important, that it'll get anything stuck in the bottom. And every once in a while, there will be like a little seed bit, like that right there. It's stuck to my finger, if you can see that. There we go. That's an immature piece. Alright, so about done. The next part, it may confuse you, but it's necessary. So I drain it down, to about like that. And then I add bleach. Now, you don't need a whole lot. I don't really measure it out, but it's just a splash. Just a splash. And that's because of mold spores. You don't want mold in your grain. And it coming straight from the farm. So you put your little bit there. And then you put, voila. Now these are the lids that I use. I can't find them anymore, but they're the best. I have some other lids that look like this. Do not buy these. Do not. They are very different. And this, for some reason, when I set my jar upside down, it doesn't drain. Look at all those holes. Why doesn't it drain? But it doesn't. So I wasted my money on those. I wanted more of these. I can't find them. So it is what it is. So there we go. We've started that jar. Now it goes in the dark. I know that may seem weird, but they sprout better in the dark. So what I do, this is where I set them. They're by my dish drainer. And you can see I've got others going. I have these towels. They're specific towels that they don't look like others used in my house, so everybody knows these are my fodder towels. And I cover everything up. Twice a day, I will rinse the fodder. So I've got these guys here. These guys are actually ready to be done sitting and soaking. So what I'll do is I'll drain them, and then they'll start sitting upside down all the time with no water. And I'll tell you my process for that. So first day, which like today with the one we just did, day 1, clean it, soaks in bleach for 24 hours. So tonight I won't empty that. Tomorrow morning I will empty it, rinse it really good, refill it. You want it to soak for 48 full hours, the way I do it anyway, 48 full hours. Then twice a day you rinse it and leave it sit upside down, and I'll show you. So you drain it, you rinse it. I use just bowls. My setup over there, I have a few, if you look at those little wooden things, they hold them if I decide to tip them at an angle. We made them here at home. But I'm finding I have better luck like this. That way, because when it sits like this, you can have some hold in that spot there, and it's not any good. So then I rinse twice a day, upside down like that for an additional 2 or 3 days, depending on light, of course. You want it complete dark. If it's exposed to too much light, it takes longer. Then after, like 2 days, I plant it, or I use it as wheat berries, and a couple days later, I have grass. Now, there are times I notice that it grows really slow, and other times it grows much faster. If you have a warmer room, it's going to grow much faster. On the really cold days, and that room is cold, it takes a few days longer. When it's super sunny and super bright, sometimes it grows faster, but I learned that when it snowed, for like a week and a half we had snow. The sun bouncing off that snow created, I guess, stronger rays to where they were like, wee-hee, and they grew super fast. And you'd be surprised, like you'll be looking at it and be like, where is it? It's not growing. What's going on? And you start to get frustrated because you need to use it to feed. But then all of a sudden you come back at the end of the day after it's sitting, in front of the window all day, and you've got like this much growth. So don't get frustrated. Don't give up. It's so much healthier for your babies, for sure. Chickens aren't the only ones that eat it. You got your rabbits, guinea pigs, chinchillas, I hear, go crazy for it. I knew one of my chickens in the hospital ward were feeling better when she was hanging out outside the brooder, and she raided my fodder shelf on her own. I was happy to see that. But I find that it's not only healthier, but it helps you cut back on your feed bill. And if you're in a position to where you can grow it in a much larger scale than like I can, then you're also better off, because I know some people who in the wintertime their chickens can't free range, they don't have access to any greens. They will grow them so much to where about 75% of their diet is grains. Or, well, not grains, well, scratch grains sure here and there, but what I mean is fodder from grains. At this point, I'm probably just rambling. I'm trying to remember if there's anything I forgot. And it's that simple, so there's not really all that much. It only took me 40 minutes to do this with you because A, I'm inexperienced with video making, and I showed you from start to finish everything that I do. That's about it. I hope that this information has helped, and I hope that you don't give up on fodder. I know that a lot of people like me are very frustrated with the mold, and you keep trying and trying and trying and trying, and you're doing those little setups where you tilt your tray and you water one and it waters all the ones below it. You think it's super cool. It is super cool. I tried for 6 months nonstop. I wasted so much money. I wasted so much time. I wasted so much grain. And then mice. Mice were getting into it because I was trying it in the garage too for a time. It was a nightmare. I wanted more than anything to be able to successfully do it. I love my animals so much that I wanted to make sure I give them the best, and I couldn't afford to go to the store and buy this. Like my husband, he bought wheatgrass one day for the rabbits, and he bought this tiny little square thing. It was like $10. $10? No, we're not paying that. So, and cocoa coir. I guess some people do it in cocoa coir as well. I chose this particular mix with the soil because of my runs. I like reclaiming soil. Everything we plant in my above ground garden, everything that goes in our runs, everything, everywhere, is all just recycled. And the chickens do an amazing job reclaiming the soil from anywhere. It goes into the coop, and then we literally will till the chicken coop and dig all of it out and use it. I know that's a lot of work, but for people like us, we enjoy that. So we enjoy reclaiming the soil. That's what we want to do. If you don't want to do that, that's okay too. You can still use the soil, and when you clean out your coop, then it does what it does. So if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. I'm sorry for rambling. Like I said earlier, I'm not savvy with all this recording stuff, so what you see is what you get. And I hope I've helped. If not, I'm sorry. If I have, wonderful. And as always, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I try really hard to make videos as often as I can. I get really busy. I don't always have time to record. If there's something that you're interested in or something that you'd like to see, just ask, let me know. I'm always happy to help. And as always, I'll win.